At First Choice Bank, we know you can't always make it before the bank closes. With our integrated teller, you can talk to a live person as late as 7 p.m. on weekdays and noon on Saturdays. It's not just an ATM, it's an ITM. First Choice Bank, your choice for banking.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 10.
Well, welcome into the Room to Room Weather Center, and I do apologize. I believe I might have clicked the wrong show, Matt. But tossing it back to you there in the studio, you're tracking the latest on these storms for tomorrow.
Yeah, we're looking at a potential for severe weather on your Wednesday here. We'll hear a little bit more detail from Gabe come up here in a couple moments as we look ahead over the course of the rest of this evening toward what could be a potential for some strong tornadoes on your Wednesday. Now, not a slam dunk forecast there, thankfully, but tornadoes are possible. We show those rotation tracks, in some cases stronger than what we were looking at 5 and 6 o'clock. We're timing out when you can expect that here in a couple of minutes. As we look in more detail again as well, again, timing out that severe threat, the thinking is it's afternoon, it's into the evening as well, that we're most likely to have some of those impacts there. And we are expecting that beyond this system, cooler temperatures return. But between the next 24 hours, it's going to stay pretty steamy, one of the things that helps produce that severe weather chance. So again, confidence remains the exact same what we were thinking at 5 and 6 o'clock today. A tornado, and a strong tornado, is a possibility, but this is never going to become a high confidence event, because when we have a warm front, which is what's going to be kind of the initiation point for these thunderstorms, that has a tendency to be something that is a little inconsistent. Maybe that's the best way to put it there. It's something that if a storm attaches to it, it's going to rotate stronger and more likely to cause some real issues there. Some spotty wind damage possible, some hail possible, not like what we had last night in all likelihood, and localized flooding also a contingency that we deal with here. Over the first 12, no issues for tonight. As you can see, we're 70 for that temperature at 7 p.m., 69 by 2 a.m., not dropping much more beyond that overnight. Rain coverage remains limited. Thunderstorms unlikely for tonight, but obviously much, much more likely as we head toward the afternoon tomorrow. Let's talk about the setup, and let's give you an example of what the storm system is doing. Wide shot here shows you the much more active weather just back to the west. All those green and blue boxes, those are severe thunderstorm and tornado watches, meaning ingredients are in place to occur. We look at the risk areas here involved and how they have evolved over the course of today. When we show these severe risk areas, this is the way they all align. That level 3 risk, I mean, a very long-ranging one all the way from the Midwest there to the Mexican border. As we place on all of the storm reports, you can see they tend to be clustered toward the center of this, not a guarantee, but in some cases we've had not just tornadoes, but quite a few that look like they are fairly hefty and strong tornadoes. And bring it up here toward the Midwest. Again, this is where we have one of those level 4 out of 5 severe weather risks. And when we look at the not just tornado threat, which is most significant in that red area there, but that significant and strong tornado threat up in excess of EF3, that's why this has been the zone that we've been concerned with, that multiple tornado producing thunderstorms. In some cases, like what our meteorologist Gabe Maynard is going to pop up for you here, one of the videos of what this looks like. So this is an example of one of those tornadoes up there in Illinois this evening. Video coming in by Christian in Kankakee, Illinois. That is a pretty strong tornado there. As you can see, even though you can kind of see through it, you can also see trees and other debris being dragged across the roadway there. Appreciate Gabe for being able to get this sent in, but that's a shot, an example of what this looks like. Now, notice how the condensation funnel with this. You know, you typically in Mississippi, you see the big dark gray all the way to the ground. In that case, the winds from the tornado evident despite the fact that the condensation, the cloud wasn't necessarily as evident there. You can appreciate Christian with that shot there. I believe we have another video to show you from there that we'll show you coming up here in a couple of minutes. But I want to bring it back in here into the Room to Room Weather Center. So that is what this storm system has produced up there. I point that out to say that when we look at our risk here across Mississippi for tomorrow, we find ourselves again under one of those level 2 out of 5 risks. And I think there will be a localized area upgraded to at least a level 3 risk within here. later on tonight or probably early tomorrow morning as confidence increases on that corridor closest to that warm frontal zone. We look at that tornado risk, and it does involve all locations here in North Mississippi in some form or fashion. But this is the reason we were looking at that graphic up north. This is that significant tornado risk. And I know it might seem counterintuitive, but why is it that we have this level 1 risk for tornadoes, and yet those same spots could also be under a level 2 risk for significant tornadoes? That means the confidence in one developing is more limited than the potential it could be, right? And that's why Gabe and I keep talking about that long, full court 3-point shot. If you hit it at the buzzer and you're down 2 points, you just won. Just the likelihood of hitting a long shot like that is much more limited than the impact it has if you hit it. So the likelihood of us seeing a strong tornado, the likelihood of us seeing a tornado is more significant back to the south and west, but the confidence is there that if one forms, it could be strong any location here across North Mississippi. So I just want to make sure that we kind of emphasize the fact that this is a somewhat low confidence, high impact severe weather event. Back out on the plains, out in the Arkansas there, heavy rainfall, thunderstorms, all that sort of activity as we look toward tomorrow morning. We're at 9 a.m. here looking at our future cast. And again, this kind of the latest version, this one ups hour to hour here. And so this will give us an idea of how the models on the very latest scans are expecting it. You can see we have a few of those thunderstorms by noontime getting in here, could have some rotation on those. If you look closely on these though, they are not super duper impressive. And if you look at the winds, we still have somewhat of a southerly wind even associated with those. We don't really have that true warm front in here, that quite the contrast until you get back to those thunderstorms that are back there into Arkansas. And so one of the signs that as these kind of lift in, I'm really going to watch this batch here, because if some of these storms we have down here south of the Golden Triangle, south of US 82 can merge into this line, that's where that potential for a strong tornado becomes more of a possibility. So hour by hour forecast over the next 24 hours, we're 10% on that coverage of rain and storms there at 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., 20% by noontime, and then in the afternoon, we see those storms flourish in coverage and intensity. 80 degrees the high temperature, again, within a couple degrees of a record high. That's how warm we are and unstable and primed and ready for severe storms to form. Coming up here in 60 seconds, we're looking at Storm Finder. Again, something you'll see only here on Mississippi Live, updated since our 6 o'clock broadcast. With the time change, we get the very latest updated version right now. But as I see someone behind the scenes mentioning here right now, and I've got to do it before we go any further, there are 2 things that you can do to protect yourself in the case of severe weather. One is know where to go. That would be whatever storm shelter you have, a small windowless room where you're at. Identify that where you're going to be tomorrow afternoon. But the other is this weather call will let you know if you need to go. You can sign up for more information at our website. And of course, scan that QR code below me. We'll have more on that. And we'll have more on where that severe threat is most likely here in 60 seconds as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room Weather Center next.
Game day brings its ups and downs, celebration and disappointment, anxiety and relief, friends and enemies. You can always argue over who should have won, but everyone can agree on great food. Appetizers, entrees, drinks, party platters, or even the taste of sweet victory. There's something for every season at Eat With Us restaurants.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's meteorologist Gabe Maynor.
We're continuing to say prayers for those that have been affected up north as several strong tornadoes have moved through Illinois and Indiana, still with those warnings in place as it moved just south of the Chicago area and now continues to move closer to the Notre Dame campus there in northern Indiana. But those storms still ratcheting up and expect that to continue. But we do have video out of Illinois earlier on today, still from the same area of Kankakee. Take a look at this. Again, this is a video submitted to us by Lisa, and give it a second to kind of work its way through. This is actually where we had the funnel form there off in the distance. And again, Lisa capturing this, and in the video, I believe it says that, she's going back inside. So it is going to be, she went to her safe place, especially whenever you see that condensation funnel there in the distance. So, Matt, definitely something we don't want to mess with. Definitely something that we're hoping does not happen down here in Mississippi. That does still remain a limited possibility getting into our Wednesday afternoon. So hopeful that that's not the case, especially with how many warnings they've gotten up there. And on top of that, we're not just talking about the tornado reports, some of the hailstones in excess of 4 inches. And, we had 2 inches yesterday and felt like that was damaging, and it was. 4 inches. Some of the damage on those vehicles is just absurd. And folks over there are working to send some of those reports. And by daylight, we should be seeing a little bit more. And I'm kind of fearful in regards to what we're going to get in some of those damage reports.
Yeah, we hope not to have those too terribly bad. We appreciate everyone, again, who works with us here to give us your reports. Of course, one way you do that, the Mississippi Live Weather app. And I take this moment right here to say, if you have not subscribed or downloaded or got one of these ways in which we send you information there, or at least a couple of those, please take the time to like, subscribe, follow, and download us. Not only will hopefully be something that gets you our information more regularly, but it's information that hopefully can save a life for tomorrow. So our chances, we expect to definitely have some major issues in some spots tomorrow. We're hoping it's not one of those high-end days. We luckily still have some questions as to whether or not it will be. As you can see here on that forecast hour by hour for your Wednesday here, expecting to start off dry initially, 20% on that storm coverage as we look toward noontime. Much more likely to see those thunderstorms as we head toward afternoon. And the thinking is that we could have a few that are strong enough that they do prompt not just tornado warnings, but possibly try to produce an isolated strong tornado. And that is our concern as we look at the risk area for tomorrow. All locations under at least a limited risk for severe weather, damaging hail, a possibility, but less of a likelihood than what we had last night. All the locations in yellow here under that severe weather threat, a level 2 concentration number of reports, but the reports themselves, I think equal likelihood. If we can get one of these storms to form, get it rooted on that boundary, equal likelihood at this point here that we could see potentially a strong tornado. EF2 doesn't sound strong, but when you reach EF2 level, that's when we're starting to cause damage to well-built structures. So keep that in mind. EF3 and greater is when we need to be in some place reinforced. So severe risk, all locations involved in that for tomorrow. We will probably see an enhanced risk area for tomorrow, level 3 out of 5 for some locations in our area. Once confidence is greater, that's what the Storm Prediction Center will be looking at overnight. Here is Storm Finder. Again, an updated look even from what we had during our 6 o'clock broadcast. Storm Finder shows us lightning. It shows us the storm chances in the color, the purple there you see, and obviously the confidence very good for severe thunderstorms back out on the plains for tonight, and likelihood that those diminish a lot during the overnight time period. Between now and tomorrow at 12:30, you can see how there are multiple batches here where we have a greater amount of lightning. These lead storms, low confidence, high impact. Okay? That's one of the things to keep in mind, because while this does not have a lot of storms on Storm Finder here, developing in central or North Mississippi has much higher confidence in storms with kind of a secondary wave tomorrow night. I have a lesser confidence in this producing the tornadoes than I do maybe something that kind of pops up ahead of that. But notice then how as we get towards 6 p.m., we get thunderstorms just a little ahead. So as far as timing for us is concerned, low confidence, but high impact in the afternoon, that if we get some thunderstorms kind of merging in. And if you look at Storm Finder there, you can see some of those thunderstorms with rotation, a lot more lightning once they get up here towards Savannah, Tennessee than over top of North Mississippi. But some of these thunderstorms still kind of merging into that line with some rotation, even 8, 9, 10 p.m. tomorrow. There's still a decent amount of lightning, probably loud thunderstorms tomorrow night once we get past midnight. Certainly down towards central Mississippi, that's much more of an issue. But those should not be tornado-producing thunderstorms for us and out of here. So I think we are probably done with the severe weather risk past really 9 to 10 o'clock tomorrow evening. As we head overnight, obviously that threat moves away from us. So let's look at our future cast here and go through the next 24. So again, overnight, all the active weather primarily closer to that boundary, closer to that front, back to the west of us, and storms running ahead of it. A lot of individual thunderstorms merging into our line here. One of those signs that, again, there could be rotation and thunderstorms trying to produce tornadoes all night long back out there into Arkansas. But we're ahead of that. We have no issues. You'll sleep fine tonight. No reason to stay up late with us. And you'll look to by tomorrow morning, upper 60s to maybe low 70s for low temperatures. I mean, come on, we should be 43. So way, way, way above our normal low temperature for this time of the year. Tomorrow morning, our meteorologist, Maggie McCauley, will be updating you on the latest on everything we're talking about here. 6:37, 7:30 a.m. on Mississippi Live Weather this morning. She's here every day. I may or may not hop on with her by that 7:30 update as we're kind of looking ahead toward this. I have a tendency to I can't keep my mouth shut. So it'll be Maggie. I might hop on with her at 7:30 to just have kind of a longer discussion. That's probably one of those that ends up becoming one of those longer live streams. Check her out and check us out as we go in the morning there. Again, Mississippi Live Weather this morning, 6:37 and 7:30 a.m. every weekday morning. So let's look at Futurecast. Does have that line of storms, including that one near Mariana, as we look toward even 9 a.m. That one looks fairly hefty, all things considered, and does probably have a little bit of rotation with it as well. Take this 2D here for a moment. Mostly this looks like probably strong straight line winds, but just for a moment there, it looked like it had just a little bit more rotation with that as it worked its way up there closer to Corinth. Give me a second. I'm going to have to force this back and bring it back forward. I didn't mean to jump quite all the way past that. Let's see it on the wider shot here for a moment. So we're watching this one near Mariana, Arkansas. That works eastward. That one heads up there into kind of middle Tennessee. We get this sort of weaker line. One of two things happens with this. This just continues plowing southeastward. We stabilize the atmosphere and it's good to go. I wouldn't count on that. I think that what happens is you get an outflow boundary left from that could end up connecting into the next batch of storms. And so you get kind of this effective sort of front ahead of the main front back to the west. And so if thunderstorms kind of attach to that effective front, sometimes we'll call it a warm front in this case, a little more rotation there. But look at these. And we talk about this at 5 and 6 o'clock. We were waiting to see if the latest model runs depicted a few more of these individual discrete thunderstorms ahead. We don't have a lot of them, and these might not be strong enough to start rotating and produce tornadoes, but I think it's certainly a possibility. And I'm interested to see how this latest version of Futurecast here kind of merges some of those thunderstorms into the main line. Notice it weakens them fairly quickly. That's what we want to see. That's what we hope will happen. That's not something I think we guarantee at this point. But then we do have a few thunderstorms closer to this front, like that one near Dumas, Arkansas, moves towards Shelby, out here toward Oxford. And we start reaching kind of our peak time frame if we're going to watch some rotating thunderstorms here. 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 o'clock, really in that 3 to 6 o'clock time period. If we're going to see high-end storms, we should start to have very good evidence that that's going to happen during that period of time there. As we head here toward around 4 p.m., notice how we have kind of this green line right there, this batch of green we show from Lake Providence up there toward Greenwood and Grenada there. I'm going to bring Gabe in here for a second because I see him kind of behind the scenes there. One of the things I get interested on that is if that ends up being kind of, I don't want to say like kind of a cloud street where we kind of have maybe a little extra convergence into that there, if that kind of acts like that effective warm front, because from time to time, if you get on one of those, maybe a little extra rotation, right?
Would you call it an outflow at that point? Kind of out ahead of the storms?
That's not an outflow. I think the thing is I think that this, what shows Winsboro to Lake Providence there, the Greenwood, that is a very, very interesting feature. Let's watch it the next couple hours. And by the way, the storms there that we show near Carroll County and near Grenada County, that has some rotation with those as well. But I'm just interested to see how the line of storms then interacts with that because, I mean, that shows like a rotating storm near Grenada, another one there near Chickasaw County, a few more out here in Itawamba County, back out toward Franklin County, Alabama. And those are almost the exact same spot around that. Is that pretty much the same thing you're getting on other models? Do you get any kind of confluence area where areas coming together like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we've seen it a couple of times, and even on another edition of the HRRR model. So I would say that's not impossible what you're talking about, that kind of sets up out ahead of that main line, and once that kind of converges together, then we can see some of those cells really start to pick up and rotate. And I mean, we saw evidence right there with these storms that are kind of starting to develop by 5 o'clock.
Yeah, so, interesting. We're going to talk about the other models. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there. We're gonna look at some of the other models. If you'll pull some of those up on the BAM monitor over there, we'll talk about that here in a minute. I'm interested to see if that's a feature that we don't always see, and I'm interested to see if that kind of depicts that on something else. Okay, so we have greater convergence. I pulled the front off there. Greater convergence right along that boundary, and still probably dealing with some of these storms trying to rotate south of US 82 in this warm sector there by still, say, 7 to 8 o'clock. After that, mostly south of us where those storms are a little stronger. We'll look at the storm rotation on this here in a minute. I'm beyond 10 to 11 o'clock tomorrow night. These will probably still be loud, but not severe. Even overnight, some claps of thunder certainly possible with that batch there. Let's look at our storm rotation on this. And so we'll have to get this all the way through early Thursday morning before that's going to kind of kick over to that. Here's a look at storm rotation. And we kind of picked this up midday with some of those storms, like that one we're looking at, Helena, out here near the Mississippi River. That's one of them that we're watching. And the initial one that we had early in the morning with more rotation heading up there toward Paris, Tennessee, and heading in the direction of Nashville. So a lot more rotation on this than what we looked at 5 and 6 o'clock. And some of these that are tracking there from Senatobia back up closer to Middleton, Tennessee, that I think is primarily rotation in a line of strong wind. I know wind is tornado, but anyway, you get sometimes the push and the outflow and just the right rotation with that. That's probably what this is depicting there north of the Ashland area. But that's a stronger rotation track than what we had earlier. Notice how our storm rotation, our HRRR model, doesn't get much out of these initial storms south there. That's not shocking. It doesn't have them deepening enough. I'm less interested on what those initial storms will do by themselves and more interested if they merge with our line farther north. So at this point, that delays hopefully the onset a little bit for the Golden Triangle. Look to Monticello, Arkansas. Let's see if that one connects. Put my finger right there. Next hour does. So that's a concern out there for Cleveland. That is one of those storms where we have not just rotation, but we have kind of a sustained, strong rotation track. Large hail potential, damaging wind gust potential with that. And yeah, just as easily could be up here heading more toward Clarksdale or down closer to Greenville. But this is a corridor we're going to be watching closely tomorrow near where that boundary is and where we also had kind of that intersection of kind of the wind coming in. Because if you watch this, I think that's probably that little boundary. Yeah, right there. This is the extra little juice that line is going to work off of. So we look up toward Tupelo and Oxford and Grenada. If these are going to be storms like that one near Grenada that starts putting out a big, strong red track, it's going to be because of whatever this is feeding in there. And I think our model is still trying to grasp exactly how that'll play out. 5:30, 6 o'clock, a lot of areas of rotation, not a lot that really catch my interest there as far as strong, long-lived rotations concerned. We do have one there as it exits Russellville and heads up close to Hazel Green, Alabama. But looking here close to, say, 7 to 8 o'clock, by that point, we're done Tupelo, we're done Aberdeen, we're done Eupora, unless there's just enough extra moisture moving northward with this and heating to kind of hold that front farther north longer. That's where that warm front, that less confident scenario comes in, where it tries to produce a tornado out of that. And then as you'll see here by 8:30, 9 o'clock, still showing some shorter tracks there toward Kosciuszko. This is probably a big batch of strong wind, heavy rainfall, still probably prompting severe thunderstorm warnings at least out here from Macon beyond 9:30, 10 o'clock tomorrow evening. And then after that point, out of here, moving out into Alabama. Obviously, there will still continue to be some issues out there and some big, big batches of wind out there overnight into Alabama, closer to the Birmingham area overnight. So this is a look at storm rotation on our exclusive strike model, something you'll see only here on Mississippi Live Weather. And we keep, again, some of the strongest on the initial batches up here into Tennessee. As we head into tomorrow, though, notice here by around 2 p.m., still keeping most of this activity north and west of us with another batch there closer to Memphis and deeply into Arkansas. So this is dramatically slower than what we were looking at on our HRRR model. It also, interestingly enough, has whatever this is in advance. And I point that out to say that whatever that is, yeah, look at that, straight down into the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, listen, I've shown you some rotation tracks tonight. And again, this is low confidence and all that sort of stuff in a lot of different ways. But the reason this is the most concerning thing I've seen is because both models have some kind of fetch of precipitation all the way down to the coast. And that means this could be kind of a highway of supercharged, unstable air to kind of get up in just the wrong spot up here in North Mississippi, where perhaps then that enhances our chance to see in wherever it's kind of the most focused, the potential to see maybe an isolated tornado. So that is concerning that on that wide shot, we have that there. We'll bring it in close. We'll kind of look at what we have up here. And again, I think this is probably slow on its timing. At least I certainly hope it's slow on its timing there. Show it again, just those lighter showers there. And you see how as this goes northward, these all start lighting up and producing more rotation there. 6, 7, 8 p.m. for tomorrow. The majority of the strong rotation tracks were showing up into Tennessee on this particular projection. We don't hope this on anybody. That does look like a better scenario for us. But I'm far from convinced on that positioning here. This would be kind of best case scenario for us here in North Mississippi. And I think that even that is probably overstating it a little bit. But this does, one, I think, common denominator here, have most of the rotation tracks clearing our area by midnight tomorrow night and making it to where it's probably loud and rainy for overnight, but less impacts there by that point in time. So let's look at triple threat here. And again, where we showed you those long track tornadoes, all the giant hail, you can definitely see where that has verified on our triple threat, something you'll see only here on Mississippi Live, up there closer to the Great Lakes, and then back out into Texas. So that's verifying here what it looks like when this is kicking out some big bad stuff. So for our area, again, triple threat is probably going to underdo the rotation a little bit versus our rotation tracks that we had on there a moment ago, but it'll give us an idea on the hail potential and some other things, keeping the majority of that back out into Arkansas through noontime. Some of those rotation tracks getting here through eastern Arkansas as we head toward, through the afternoon. As we head into tomorrow evening, overnight, though, you'll notice how, at least on our strike model, mostly north, mostly west. And if you're looking for kind of a best case scenario for us here in North Mississippi, this would be it. Now, nonetheless, if you look closely, there's a decent amount of blue showing up on here, meaning on a number of locations, we're going to end up seeing some strong wind potential on it. Maybe not all the way up to extreme wind damage, but I'll be honest, I've yet to see triple threat really anywhere kick out extreme wind damage. So we might have to calibrate that up. I think we might be a little too aggressive on what we're looking at on this. So that's some of the fine tuning we're going to do over the course of this severe weather season. We do show some isolated large hail close to Kosciuszko on that. I think there are going to be some other stripes, especially what I looked at out in the Delta, where we could have some large hail potential there as well. And then beyond that, that system kind of moving on out of here, we get a few days of drier weather. So let's look at the 7-day forecast, and then we're going to kind of go nerdcast on this with our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, and myself, looking at some of our other projections here in a moment. So again, hour by hour, not much early. We're going to have 77, that temperature there by noontime. Lots of thunders and storms as we head 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, kind of peak time frame for us. And the thunderstorms mostly below severe levels by tomorrow at 10 to 11 o'clock in the evening, and then diminishing after that. We're 60, we're cooler as look toward your Thursday. 69 degrees, the high temperature there on Friday, but 30s there for lows. As again, we probably have some frost. And a lot of times when we have a big system like this, really stirs up the atmosphere, much colder air comes in behind it. We do tend to get some frost and things like that. A few more thunderstorms as we head towards Sunday, but then behind that system, we get a lot cooler as we look toward the first part of next week. So kind of a big transition there. But let's talk timing here for a moment. I know Gabe kind of dropped in this timing graphic, and because he put the work in on it, I'm going to bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, as we kind of talk through the timing related this tomorrow. Certainly for most of us, prime time is going to be that time period. You show 2 to 8 o'clock, and give or take there a little bit on the timing. I think most of this out of here beyond really 11, right?
I would agree. I think that, some of our earliest models has it getting here by 10 a.m. That specific HRRR model that you showcased at the start of the show, kind of looking at some of those rotating storms through Tunica, South Haven, and up there towards the central part of Tennessee. So this is accommodating for those initial cells But why there's an elongated time frame up here towards the northwest part of the area, it's because of that initial wave kind of working on through and then acting as that boundary for more of those storms to build into the area. So kind of a extended time frame up there towards northwest Mississippi, but by the time we get towards that 2 to 8 time frame, and again, we were looking at this just a moment ago with some of those brighter streaks potentially through Cleveland, Greenville, Grenada, showing some of those brighter helicity streaks. That's where it's accommodating for that peak heating during the afternoon, allowing for the potential of some of those rotating storms and the potential for some of those tornadic storms. So this kind of timing that out. And then Golden Triangle further towards the south and east, we're talking 5 to 11 o'clock, working its way out of North Mississippi and then going to cause some issues over there towards Alabama as well, as some of these stronger storms begin to work their way through. So I think this kind of covers, and there is some overlap, so that's showing that there is still some questions on that timing. It's not going to be ironed out perfectly. But this is to give folks a little bit of a better idea if they're asking specifically. One that I'm mentioning is someone asking, is Grenada in trouble? Well, I wouldn't say you're in trouble by any means, but you're looking at that peak time frame, probably 2 to 8, where those storms begin to move in.
And the thing that I don't want to miss on all of this is this graphic. It's why we've shown it a number of times here, these two graphics kind of back to back, which is everybody who watches us here in North Mississippi has a potential for strong tornadoes tomorrow. And at the same time, the confidence is greater south and west for those storms to be producing tornadoes. But the thing is, you can start producing a tornado in the yellow area and then maintain that tornado into the green area tomorrow. So I don't want anybody necessarily, we're not trying to scare anybody here, but at the same time, we're also trying to prepare folks to make sure that they know what they need to know. Before we go too far, I want to pop up one graphic here, and then we're going to come back, Gabe, and we'll have you, we're going to talk back and forth and go nerdcast on this. Sound good?
That sounds good.
Well, nerding's always good. As we bring it back over here for a moment, I'm going to, again, pop up this graphic for you behind the scenes, which is we need to think about building our armor. And so what does that mean? That means that we want to make sure that we have as many layers between us and bad weather as possible. So weather call, one of the things that we talk about, the Mississippi Live Weather app, again, which you can see right there, free and available for all those different devices. You want to make sure that you have that app, that you have alerts turned on, but you have weather calls, so it'll also notify you code red, which I got a new one yesterday. It's an alert. But I think weather call is much clearer than what you get from there. I think they have like a robot voice kind of reading that. I have some feelings on that. Ultimately I still have it. I think you should still have it to layer those alerts so that we can be in as good shape as possible. So we don't want anybody scared. We're just trying to make sure everybody's prepared for the potential for severe weather. So pick up weather call, pick up, of course, the app. And now as we bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Maynard, once again here, and we're talking about this, what I see behind you there is the GFS. Let's talk positioning. Let's talk positioning 21Z there, which would be about 4 p.m. tomorrow and where everything's kind of lining up. So Gabe, I'm going to pop my microphone up behind the scenes so that we can have you full on this here.
Okay.
Let's walk through it.
Okay, so yeah, we're talking about all of the individual runs, some of those short range, some of those long range. We're of course, going to favor the short range in this aspect, but walking through the positioning. And I think the biggest ones that stand out is our HRRR, which does show that, almost warm front moving into North Mississippi. And by 21Z, we're starting to get those showers, but you also have that band, like what Matt was mentioning just a moment ago, that convergence band possible to kind of allow these storms to potentially start to ramp up. But the NAM 3K, that's lining up pretty well with our strike model. And that's also showing some of these bands that are out ahead, but the positioning on it is much further towards the west. And so this almost lining up, and I'm not going to say identically, but close to what the strike model was putting out. Now, that's not to say, one or the other. I would say that, I don't know. I don't know, but based off of what we've had so far this year, I would say the HRRR model, the positioning is what I would favor in this setup. But
so go. So that is, I'll give you my call on this. So that's HRRR. Give me NAM 3K. That is closer to the strike model. I don't necessarily believe that.
Yeah.
And I also, if you go for, anyway, we'll go forward from that in a minute. So if I'm telling you the HRRR model on that.
Okay, well that's 2 against 0 because I'm with you on that one. And most of our short-range models are kind of lining up with that same positioning. You kind of look at the individual HRRR models that are coming out, and you kind of see that same positioning with those storms right overhead in North Mississippi by 21Z. But, positioning, we kind of get the general idea. I want to showcase that band that we're talking about because it does show up on multiple runs. You know, right here, you're getting that a little bit further towards the south. We move it over towards this next one, still getting some of that band, or at least some of those individual cells developing. We move more into, where was the next one? The M3K, we're getting that band once again out ahead of that main line of storms. Well, that's one of our long track models. But nonetheless, we're getting this on multiple runs, Matt, and I think that's a big part of the forecast.
I think it's an effective warm front.
Yeah, I think it's.
I'm going to come over here and show you that here in a minute. Like, let's take a look at this, and I want to see the run-to-run on that here for a second. I think it's an effective warm front would be probably the best way to describe it. Let me kind of pop this up here. I should zoom that in. So here's what we're looking at, that kind of band that Gabe and I are talking about. Precip here, simulated reflectivity. So see how we kind of have this area right there. So I'm going to try to put my thumb exactly where that is there. Perfect. If somebody's been doing this a million years, you'd think it'd be easier for me to hit exactly where I'm going for on that. Okay, so if we look at theta E, which is a way for us to kind of look at both temperature and instability, kind of put it all in the same thing here, you'll notice that's right at the edge of where there's just a little bit of darker red there. That slight difference. When we talk about tornadoes, it is slight differences between trying to spin something up, and we just had something bad happen. And you can kind of see it's in similar spots. You know, I could just as easily look ahead here, right about there. And if I click this back over to precipitation mode, and we look up, make sure I got the right spot there. Yep. See, that's right at the nose of that. So here's what you need to know about this, and here's why this is important. This is kind of a nose of more unstable air there coming right out of the Gulf of Mexico. The model does not know how to handle it because this will not be rain all the way in here. But it sees the convergence and goes, I've got air coming together, I've got moisture, I need to make a shower there. That's probably not how this works out. In some cases, when we have strong tornadoes, we have a band like this that ends up pointing the nose to just one storm, and that one storm then becomes dominant and strong and produces a strong, long-lived tornado. So the concern would be that if that nose moving northward, I mean, you can see it, watch this. See, it's down there in Louisiana, moving northward, moving northward, moving northward, and then watch how, see how it focuses that right at that spot there, which would be Montgomery, Clay, Webster, Monroe, Itawamba counties right there. The time frame on that would be somewhere around 4 to 5 to 6 o'clock for tomorrow, that band could be in just the wrong spot at the wrong time to have that extra little boost to make those storms stronger and more likely to try to produce tornadoes. So that is the concern. No guarantees that's how that happens, but that's going to kind of game our models here to kind of enhance that significant tornado parameter. You can see right there along the edge of where that would be, some spots where it's like, hey, there's just an extra little bit there. Again, I don't have high confidence that this is going to be in any one specific spot. I think there's a chance that this all falls flat and it underwhelms, and dear God, hopefully that's the case. But it's always concerning when the model picks up on a little band like that. That can then enhance the potential for some extra boost going to some of these models. I'm looking here at kind of hail and some other things that work with this here. One of the spots where we have, again, some of those swaths of trying to kick out a little rotation on that as well. So I'm interested to see what that looks like overnight. Our meteorologist Maggie McCauley have more on that tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to bring Gabe back in here as I went all tangent on him. And again, Gabe, you got a white screen behind you there. I'm ready to see what you're ready to reveal.
Well, to be honest with you, I wasn't really ready to reveal much. What we did have was another report come out of Wren of some of the hailstones from yesterday. And I want to also talk about the fact that large hail is possible with this setup too. Some of those helicity tracks, is going to be some large hail attached to it, as well as gusty winds and those tornadoes. So Matt, you know, all three are kind of on the table. And of course, that's what we're watching. And here's the picture actually right here. And that's a decent sized stone coming out of yesterday. So one of those later reports, but nonetheless, we could still be talking about large hail heading into tomorrow, so showing that all three are on the table.
Absolutely. Again, this is what you were mentioning there. So again, the risk for tomorrow involves all locations. Tornado risk is the most concerning always. So let's go ahead and pop this up here. I'll pop it behind you while we're talking. Yeah, there you go. So tornado risk is obviously the most concerning risk, the potential that we could see strong tornadoes for the spots in that dark red color you see there. Damaging winds, a possibility. I think any rotating storm could kick out a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust. I think equal likelihood for most locations for that to happen. We're probably not talking about 75, 85, or 95-mile-per-hour winds, which is what we indicate there with the colors on that. The hail risk, more limited than what we had yesterday, and we're probably not talking about 1.5 to 2 inch sized hailstones like yesterday. So again, it is the tornado threat and the significant tornado threat that are the most significant concerns that we have out of this setup, Gabe.
Yeah, and I, real quick before we scan past it, another report that was coming out of Illinois, and again, we're not having this size hail, but nonetheless, it is still a unique report because we haven't seen hail this large in Mississippi in I think like 3 or 4 years. This is about 3 to 4 inch stones, and this was submitted by Lisa as well. And you can see some of these stones, I mean, they were just absolutely massive, and you get a visual. I mean, you can see some of them melting there with the water at the bottom of the bag, and so these aren't even fully built.
Well, those are the ones that hit the ground and still were decent after they hit the ground. That's the thing to consider with that.
Well, and we also did get a report. Let me move it to this side of the screen. You can see some of the dents. That's when we're talking about some of the hail damage. I mean, this is what 3 to 4 inch hailstones will do, and kind of just denting those vehicles. And they did let me know that they're going to get back out there tomorrow once more of that daylight moves in, and they're going to drive south of town closer to the oh my word, I've said it so many times tonight, I don't know how it's escaping me. The Illinois town, Kankakee?
Kankakee.
Yes, they're going to head south because this was about 1 mile north where they were at and getting some of this large hail. So they're going to go check out some of those reports and send those over to us to kind of show a little bit more of the damage that took place. But Matt, nonetheless, this is not the storm that I think anyone wants to go through. And as you can see, I mean, looking at those reports, numerous reports of large hailstones, and most all of these reports are 2+, 3+ inch hailstones, and that's what those strong, long-lived tornadoes can do. They usually have those large hailstones attached to them, and as that pushed closer to the Notre Dame campus, I'm glad to know that it never fully reached the folks over there at Notre Dame, and so that means that, you know, that's a large populated area, and that's usually the worst case scenario when we're talking about where these tornadoes can move towards. But you know, an active night across the United States, lining up pretty well with that severe weather risk that the Storm Prediction Center put out earlier, and those strong tornadoes that they showed with that SIG 2, that level 2 for strong threats, up to EF3.
You're gonna lose the phrase SIG 2. I don't care about SIG 1, 2, and 3. We're just talking about.
Well, so what terminology? How would you say that?
So here's what we're gonna say. We're going to have, if you look at the graphic, it's going to be the first level red is up to EF2 strength. The second level red is up to EF3 strength.
Okay.
And the fourth level red is EF4 or stronger,
okay,
as the peak intensity. So when we're looking at the potential intensity, which is why that's what I have right below the logo there, it says potential intensity. Yep. So that's the way I'm looking at it. So we're looking at the strong to the tornado risk. So we're looking at a spot there where the potential intensity could be something. SIG 2, SIG 3. Again, this is just me, you know, and whatever my opinion is.
No, it's valid because no one outside of the weather will know.
Exactly. So that's why I want to scrub that from. It's like debris ball. Scrub it from vocabulary because it means nothing outside the weather world. What does make a difference is, hey, that's producing debris. Okay, it's causing damage. Absolutely. And in this case, this graphic shows where we're most likely to have strong tornadoes and how strong those tornadoes could be.
That's true. Okay. Well, it's scrubbed from my mind. I already forgot what we were talking about. So that's where that strong tornado risk
that's an example here of what it looks like with the most significant damaging winds. When you're looking at wind gusts in excess of up to 75 miles per hour, that's what this indicates. So you have not only just the wind, and this is a learning and teaching moment for us, where again, high likelihood to see wind for a lot of locations, but there's a small and narrow corridor where we're most likely to see 75 mile per hour winds. And when you start talking 75 mile per hour winds, now that's starting to knock semis off the road. Now that's starting to overturn, if it hits just right, that can rock a mobile home, maybe not fully overturn it. You're probably more 80, 85 miles per hour before that happens. But if everything goes the wrong way, that's when you can have some issues there. So that's why, again, destructive wind or significant hail, that's where this kind of comes in. And again, they had that high level 2.5 inch plus hail risk there. They did not up in
I was
Illinois,
wondering.
but probably should have it. But you know, that's easy for us to say after the fact, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I want to make note of here real quick. If you pull up our day 2 tornado risk and the strong tornado risk kind of doing that back to back. If we pull that up there and specifically highlight North Mississippi, of course, that does show that level. Oh, yeah, there you go. That level 2 threat kind of getting into Grenada, parts of Yalobusha and Lafayette County, kind of extending towards the south and west. But if we put that strong tornado risk up, you can see how that does start to cover some of those marginal areas. And as I saw over the weekend, and I know that several people have mentioned it of, what happened in Michigan. It was an EF3 in that marginal risk. This is where we could potentially get one of those stronger tornadoes in a marginal risk. We saw some of those helicity tracks take it up there towards southwestern parts of Tennessee, western parts of Alabama. If some of those stripes do stand true, then that does mean that we're talking potentially EF1, EF2, and that's going to be in that marginal area. So that's the new introduction of this graphic by the Storm Prediction Center, is to show that, strong tornadoes are possible even in some of those green sections. So don't look at yourself and say, it's no worry, I'm in a level 1 out of 5. Well, if that level 1 out of 5 verifies and that single report is a strong tornado, it's just a single report, but at the same time, that is a heavily impactful storm, and that is why it still matters to take this seriously. It still matters to get that plan in place, and as Matt was talking about, getting those layers of protection ready and getting that safety plan in place right now. Again, it is not too late, and we're not fully in the event just yet. That's going to start heading into tomorrow afternoon. So talk to your family tonight. Let them know, hey, this is where we're going in the event of a storm. If you have to go to work and your kids are at home for spring break, let them know that plan. And that's going to help them stay safe whenever we're talking about these potentially destructive storms. We want our family to stay safe. I know there are circumstances where you can't necessarily get home to take them to shelter, so talking that plan with them right now, of course, helps. Another thing that helps, you see it pop up right here, our Mississippi Live weather call, and that is Matt going to call you guys, let you guys know when those storms are headed your direction and when it's severe. And even those strong, severe storms, you're getting multiple calls to let you know that it is headed your way. And, whenever we're in a broadcast, I get text, I get notifications, and I don't look at them because we're live with you guys. But the moment I get a call, I'll either know, A, my audio's not on, but in the event of a strong to severe setup, whether that's tornadoes or strong winds, I know when I get a call that I need to answer it because something serious is happening. And that goes the same with weather call. It's going to call you and let you know, and it's only $15 a year, which is less than $1.25 a month. And I know you're probably like me and you get a cup of coffee every morning from the gas station, or at least one morning in the month. That's less than the price of a cup of coffee from the gas station. So very much worth your while, especially when you know that that can save your life or potentially your family's life. And that has a ton of value to me. That has a ton of value to Matt. It has a ton of value to folks in North Mississippi. So if you have not done so,
that has a ton of value. That has a ton of value to your kids. That has a ton of value to your grandma. To make the right choice. And I see behind the scenes there in the chat saying, "Good idea to put on teens' phones." Absolutely. By the way, we do have a storm shelter list. I need to mention that there. We have a storm shelter list at our website, msliveweather.com there. It's not perfect. We need to update it. Some of you have messaged us that there are some new storm shelters out there, which is awesome. We need to try to get those kind of on the list, but I'll kind of pop it up here behind the scenes for a moment. We do have that storm shelter list at our website there. So you go on it, it's kind of broken down by county location there, Alcorn County, Calhoun County, different storm shelters around the region. As we showed you yesterday, we also plot those on Mama Justice Doppler radar in the storm tracks as well. So identify now where those storm shelters would be if you need to end up taking shelter tomorrow. We're hoping that's not the case, but certainly could be a possibility there as well. Gabe, I'm thinking we'll probably wrap things up here. I don't want to go a whole lot longer, but I'll bring it back to the 2-box here for just a moment, just in case there's anything else you want to add before we kind of wrap things up.
I would just say, I agree wrapping it up now is wise because you need your rest. I'll need my rest. And folks in North Mississippi need their rest tonight because I know it's going to be, while it is during the day and not a nocturnal threat, it's still going to weigh heavily on your mind throughout the day. And you're going to be tuned in watching. And we appreciate that and all the support here at Mississippi Live Weather. But I know it's going to be mentally taxing. So get that rest tonight. You can sleep in a little bit too. It's spring break. But by the time you're waking up, then you'll be able to turn on Mississippi Live Weather and stay updated on what's happening.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that spring break and maybe tuning in there early. If you happen to be up early, our meteorologist Maggie McCauley will be here updating you starting at 6:37, 7:30 a.m. on Mississippi Live Weather. I'll be probably hopping on with her at some point in the morning. You know me, I can't be quiet. But Maggie, she keeps me in line for sure. She has to. Somebody does. Somebody has to keep this train on the tracks. Maggie does it every day, and we're so proud to have her a part of our team, just like we're proud to have Caleb and Gabe as well. Our next
Oh, Matt, I think it's my audio. Our next broadcast going to be at 5, 6, and 10 on, 6:37 and 7:30 with our meteorologist Maggie McCauley. Go ahead and download that free app today and tune in to those morning broadcasts. Going to be essential to know what's happening later on in your Wednesday with that severe weather threat. And Chief Meteorologist Matt Laupon and I, live shows at 5, 6, and 10. We will be live before then tracking those storms, letting you know what's happening. So make sure to keep on from the Room to Room Weather Center for the very latest.
March 24th, 2023 was a normal Friday. You know, we knew the weather was not good, but we needed to take shelter, and we didn't have shelter. My husband and almost 2-year-old daughter, Ethan and Riley, they did lose their lives in the storm. We're still recovering from it. We'll always be recovering from it. Matt Laupon cares about the community. He's not just there to collect a paycheck. I feel like Matt Laupon has proven himself trustworthy